another factor that plays an important role is understanding is one thing, but implementation is another ball game altogether. So in your opinion, Ankur, how can an organization inculcate culture at the core of their organization, and how can one move with great company culture?
Sure. I'd call it a three-step process. Number one is the belief that culture is something that needs to be built from day one, because if you don't build it from day one, it would build itself nonetheless. And that is something which is very, very critical to realize. The number of founders who push out building the culture to another day, like, oh, we're just very early, it's not important, this is not the necessary thing right now. Right now it's all about building the product, getting the product market fit, culture baad mein sochenge, we'll think about it later. No, because as I said, it's the way of doing things. So if you don't define, or if you don't reflect the way that things should be done, it will still find a way of getting done. And that will become the culture. So you will realize that when you do get to a day when you want to build culture, you won't be building culture, you'll actually be changing culture from what it has become to what you thought it should be from day one. And that's a lot harder. Changing culture is a lot harder than building one. So that's number one. Number two then is, if you do come up with that realization that it's a day one thing, then you go ahead and define the culture. You define the value system, you define the way things will be done. This is not set in stone, but this is almost like principles. And if the audience has read Principles by Ray Dalio, and if you haven't, then I strongly encourage you to read it. It's a wonderful peek into how you build an organization with very strong principles or mental models or frameworks that the company lives by. And that just begins to get seen, observed, felt in various walks of life during the organization's evolution, and then eventually becomes culture. For example, at Nearby, the culture that we had was 3 words. And if you were to, even today, in my absence, go to any individual who works at Nearby and ask, hey, what's the culture of Nearby? I can bet my life that they will be able to respond to it. Not because they've been trained to, but because they feel it. And those 3 words were respect, ownership, and performance. Respect, ownership, and performance. We were like, we will always stand for respect, irrespective of who you are, how you look, where you come from, how you speak. Respect was irrespective of who you are, how you speak, how you look, where you studied, how much you earn, what your title is, you will be respected. And by that same virtue, you ought to show respect. And that was just displayed consistently in all our conduct, in the way that we behaved, in the way that perhaps I am as a founder, as an individual. I've always believed in respect and equality, and it then becomes very natural for me to exhibit that same behavior in my conduct, and for people to see that as being reinforced as a strong value system or culture. Second was around ownership, and ownership is not about what you're told to do, but what you do beyond what you're told to do. It's about never saying, this isn't my job, or that's someone else's job. It's about you standing up and saying, if I am in a capacity to help or to get this done, I will. I wouldn't ask myself whether it's my job or not. I will go outside of what the expectations from me are and surprise my own self. I will do things that are not driven by what my output is, but what the outcome is expected to be. Because the output is just a checklist. It's just the things that I have to do. But what is it that was meant to achieve through my output is what I will intently focus upon. And finally, performance, which is, it doesn't matter how popular you are, how cool you are, how likable you are, how long you've been in the company, everything boils down to performance. And performance is all about you not just getting what you were supposed to get, but inputting what you were supposed to input. It's about the input variables as much as it's about the output variables. What you do consistently every day as a habit defines your performance. And that's what we will measure you on. That's what you should measure yourself upon as well. So these 3 things, defined and consistently shown. So then definition is the second part. And the third one, which is it is generally the hardest, and I feel that's where I spend most of my time, is to inculcate this culture and to always endorse when you see that culture being lived, and always object and stand up for when that culture is not withheld, not genuinely displayed in conduct. And that doesn't mean that you're trying to protect the culture. It means that you genuinely believe these are the three foundations for what the culture of this organization should be. And then whenever you see something going against that culture, you'll always stand up for it. And I remember I used to spend every Wednesday an hour with all the new joinees that I joined in the last 1 week. And the only focus for my conversation beyond welcoming them was to focus on that culture and to request them to be my ambassadors, because they were the ones who were new. They were the ones who were fresh. They were the ones who were blank slates. So they could be the best judge of whether the culture that we speak about is genuinely and authentically even experienced or not. And I told them, here's my humble admission and my request. If you find that culture not being lived up to in the organization, then please consider it your moral obligation to raise it to me. Because I stand here as the custodian of that culture, and you stand here as the informer of whether that is happening or not. And if we work together, then I'm convinced we will be able to set that right culture and to make that happen. And a deluge of such reinforcement steps, and I can go on as we will discuss. But the third one is basically reinforcement of that culture on a daily basis. Please don't forget to subscribe to this channel so that whenever we put up a new video, you're aware of it.